of the many privileges that our membership in the specialty coffee industry provides us, I'm guessing that at the top of nearly everyone's list is the opportunity to connect with the countless lands, cultures, and people where coffee is produced. Now, if it's not at the top of your list, I'm here to suggest that perhaps it should be, because it's one of the aspects of our industry that makes it really unique. Nearly everyone who makes the trek to origin returns re-energized and enthusiastic, no matter how difficult the travel or how many stamps may fill their passport. The relationships that we form in the course of our travels provide us with the very heart of the stories that we then go on to tell our customers about what it is that makes specialty coffee so special. These stories reveal not only what makes individual coffee special, but also what's special about the individuals that produce them. Our very industry is predicated on the telling of these stories, linking consumers around the world with the countless communities where great coffees are produced. Now, another story that we like to tell is that for consumers and producers alike, a relationship with specialty coffee will directly lead to a higher quality of life. Now, like everyone here, I love a great story. But what really fascinates me is an especially great myth. And ever since I've been quite young, I've been fascinated with the myth of the cowboy. It's a uniquely American perspective, something like jazz, baseball, or the Kardashians. I think what's always fascinated me about the cowboy is this idea of a lone ranger, traveling with everything he needs in a couple of saddlebags, blazing his own trail and leaving nothing behind but a cloud of dust and a series of smoldering campfires. The cowboy has always represented a unique brand of resourcefulness. While there were many reasons for people to head out into uncharted territory and look for various aspects of improving their lives, one of the more compelling motivations seemed to revolve around this idea of the search for one's own personal gold, however that may be defined. While we can still see various aspects of this myth being played out in modern American life, I think it's also one that has driven much of the growth of the specialty coffee industry. How many of us have not, at one time or another, found ourselves enamored with, or perhaps even included in our marketing material, this image of a khaki-vested coffee buyer riding shotgun in a mud-splattered Jeep, maybe a machete in one hand, in the search for that elusive coffee gold, the undiscovered varietal, an unbelievable quality, a diamond in the rough. 10 years ago, I was working as a coffee trader and had to sort through a constant flow of information that would make its way across my desk on a daily basis. Information about fluctuating market prices, differentials, expected crop yields, weather reports. All of this would go into making decisions about which coffees to buy and how much to sell them for. One day in late October of 2003, I came across a piece of information that would actually change the course of my life. Now, it wasn't like some sort of instantaneous religious revelation, but this information lodged itself in the back of my brain and gently exerted its influence over a whole series of decisions over the course of many years. It appeared at the very bottom of a page that described current conditions in several coffee-growing regions around the world. It was titled, "Ethiopian Coffee Farmers Face Tough Times." The short paragraph that followed described the plight of Ethiopian coffee farmers and who they lacked access to information, a critical piece of information, and as a result struggled to put food on their tables, much less participate in that brand of prosperity that specialty coffee had come to promise. The closing prices of the New York and London markets were broadcast twice a day on Ethiopian national radio, but only a small fraction of farmers actually had access to a radio. And so as a result, coyotes would take advantage of their lack of knowledge and tell them that, oh yes, once again, prices had taken another plunge and that they could now only offer them a few cents lower than the last time that they had visited. This was happening at a time when the New York Sea was hovering just below 70 cents. This scenario, which I was sure was playing out in many different coffee-growing regions around the world, appealed not only to my sense of ethics, but also to my core beliefs about sustainability from a very economic perspective. How much longer could this go on until we started to lose not only members of this generation of coffee farmers, but also the next? Who would even continue to farm coffee, much less produce the kind of qualities that we had come to expect, unless it was their only choice? And if that were the case, what did that say about our industry that now depended on a kind of indentured servitude? It was these kind of questions that led to the founding of what would become the Coffee Lifeline project in 2004. Its mission was simple: to provide farmers with access to information that could actually have a positive impact in their lives. Information to current market pricing. Our very first collaboration was with the Freeplay Foundation, an inventor of a unique radio that was designed to withstand harsh conditions. It was powered by a crank mechanism and a solar cell, and never required access to either batteries or electricity. It was perfect. So I started knocking on the doors of my competitors and my customers, and started writing articles for trade magazines, and eventually gathered up enough funds to send myself and 100 radios to Africa. About this same time, I attended the last SCAA conference here in Boston and met Tim Schilling. Now, as many of you know, at that time, Tim was leading the rebirth of the Rwandan coffee sector. And given its relatively small size and recent entry into the specialty market, it seemed like a perfect place to launch a pilot project rather than the much larger and more complex regions of Ethiopia. So after a few weeks of discussion and deliberation, the decision was made to switch the focus of the project from Rwanda to Ethiopia. As a newcomer to the NGO world, I have to confess that I entered it with a kind of naive belief that it was going to be one big group hug, that there would be much mutual backslapping and admiration for one another's work. What I found instead was that, much like the commercial coffee world, many development organizations followed the code of the cowboy, preferring to pursue their own trail. Although there was much respect, and even in some cases admiration for one another's work, very many times organizations struggled to simply tell their own story, what it was about their unique approach or methodology that would actually appeal to a dwindling pool of donor dollars. Although there was, sometimes you would see these organizations working in similar villages or locations, or in some cases even in the same location, very often there was a little communication between them. And as a result, there was no sort of common conversation about shared goals or common visions. For us, our ignorance proved to be an asset rather than a liability. We embarked on a series of collaborations that did not dilute our story, but helped us to expand it, deepening our impacts and creating a greater sense of efficiency. After distributing the first 100 radios into listening groups that we had formed within cooperatives, we soon discovered that Simply putting hardware into farmers' hands was really only the first step in providing access to the kind of information that could actually have an impact in their lives. Information had become one of the world's most powerful forms of international currency, and it seemed like any sort of project at origin, whether it was addressing quality improvement or social or environmental issues, depended on a consistent access to reliable information. And so in 2005, we began a collaboration with Radio Solace, a brand new community radio station set up by the University of Rwanda to meet local and regional needs. Together with Radio Solace and the USAID-funded Spread Project, we created a weekly radio show that was called Imbera Heza, or Bright Future, that addressed the specific needs of coffee farmers and their families. We began to make regular visits out to the farm fields to ask farmers what kind of information they would find most useful, as opposed to deciding on program topics from the relative comfort of our own offices. We began to promote farmer-to-farmer mentoring, producing a series of in-depth programs on successful practices that were being implemented on individual farms as well as at the cooperative level. This provided farmers with a forum where they could learn from one another. In 2009, we were again presented with another opportunity to expand our mission, this time outside of the boundaries of coffee. The Pi Lifeline project was launched in support of Rwanda's pyrethrum farming sector. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with pyrethrum, it's one of the world's only sources of botanical pesticide. It's only grown in a handful of places around the world, and right now, worldwide demand is 3 times that of supply. Our partners in this project include SC Johnson Company, USAID, Texas A&M, and Sopirwa, a privately held pyrethrum processing plant in northern Rwanda. Earlier this year, we embarked on another collaboration, this time with Kenya's Meteorological Ministry and their network of community radio stations. These broadcasts, called Tahabu Itu, or Our Gold, provide farmers with access to weather information, commodity information, health, and nutrition. Later this year, through the magic of radio, farmers in Kenya and Rwanda will actually be able to exchange information and begin to craft strategies around issues of common concern. And just last month, we launched the Black Earth Project, a new collaborative research initiative designed to explore the use of biochar as a soil amendment for smallholder farmers, helping them to increase yields while lowering input costs and sequestering carbon in the soil for up to 1,000 years. If successful, this project could lead to the creation of the world's first carbon-negative coffee. Now, all of these projects have been defined by their unique collection of partners, bringing together industry stakeholders, NGOs, research institutions to craft strategies around common goals and creating greater efficiencies and increasing impacts. Later last year, we invited other NGOs working in our same areas to participate in a series of roundtable discussions to explore how we might be able to help them extend their reach and expand their outreach and education efforts. An unexpected outcome of these meetings was that for the first time, many organizations began to actually sit down and talk to one another, to exchange information, and begin to craft strategies around common ground. These meetings are going to be expanded in the coming year, and they'll hopefully provide the seeds for further collaboration at some point in the future. Now, for those of you who are history buffs and trivia buffs in the audience, before the beginning of the 20th century, the term broadcasting referred to the sowing of seeds over a very wide area. So the frontier has shifted. The days of the lonesome cowboy are over. If we are going to successfully meet the accelerating challenges of climate change and related crop diseases, increased competition for land and natural resources, an aging farming population, food insecurity, and the countless other issues that threaten coffee communities around the world, it's going to require our collective action. It's going to mean that we will need to forego our unique narratives to become part of a larger story. It means that cowboys are going to need to gather around the collective campfire to come up with comprehensive solutions to complex problems. And if we can manage to do that, we will not only pass on a prosperous, healthy, and sustainable coffee future to the next generation, but we will also, in effect, create an example, a workable model to every other international industry that finds itself struggling with many of these same issues. And that, I believe, is a story worth becoming part of. Thank you.